So, Formula One has recently celebrated its 75th birthday, and F1 themselves have handily sent out some incredible colorized footage from the first ever Formula One Grand Prix back in 1950. Now, me and Ed, we've referenced this quite a bit, the first ever Silverstone Formula One Grand Prix back in 1950, about how much the sport has changed. We spoke about it. Now we can actually show you some incredible restored footage from the time and talk about just how much F1 has changed over the past 75 years. This is a incredible bit of footage here, isn't it, Ed, to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were lucky to get this from our friends over at Formula One, but there's so much we're going to be able to talk about here. It was so different back in those days, but yeah, it's I'm glad we can open people's eyes up to see how much things have changed.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's only 3 minutes of footage, but there's so much to dissect in here from the competitors, the tracks, the attendees, everything in between. So let's dive in. Let's have a look at what has changed over the past 75 years. Because spoiler alert, it's a lot.
Well, quite an interesting start to Formula One race. The first thing that struck me is the king and queen attended the race. It's the first and only time. And George, I just got to ask you, you're from the UK, so you're probably a lot better than me at this. Does the queen or did the queen not like racing, car racing? Because she goes to horse races all the time. What's the deal? Doesn't like car racing? What's happened? Only one time in Formula One.
It is strange that, isn't it? Yeah, she was big into horse racing for sure. She used to love going to the Highland Games up in Scotland. I don't think car racing was really her cup of tea, to be honest. She never really made many appearances at things like football matches and stuff like that. That was usually kind of devolved to the princes and princesses of whoever wanted to attend at the time. So it is a bit odd how they never attended since, and this is the only time when it happened when her father, George the Fifth, off the top of my head, might get the number wrong there, but yeah, it's so weird how this is the only time that's ever happened in any country as well. I think you were saying so. It's weird how no, that's never happened anywhere else, really.
Well, maybe Liberty Media ought to put an invitation out to the new king and start a new era. But the other thing that I think is interesting about this first race is that the attendance was 120,000 people. With all its simplicity and everything else, 120,000 people. And as far as recently as 2017, there's only like about 80,000 that attended the race. And now Silverstone's gotten up to about 150,000. But so it was way up there. It came
Mm.
down, and now, well, thanks to Liberty Media and Drive to Survive and all that, I think the interest has gone back up. But yeah, it's sort of been a roller coaster ride there for attendance at Formula One.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see this in a lot of sports. To be fair, again, to use the football example, they talk about FA Cup finals having like 150,000 people at Wembley because there was so much more people you could just pack in back then. There were no seats. I mean, as we'll see with this track, Silverstone's changed a lot. Now it's an incredible modern facility, one of the best in the world. But back then, it was literally 5 years after it was being used as an RAF airbase in the Second World War. So it's basically just a big field with a track on it.
Yeah, and I think that's the way those tracks were at first too, until safety and all that started to become more of a concern. I think that the other thing that really impressed me in this first segment from this video are the drivers.
Mm,
The one that they note is the prince from Thailand, Prince Virda, I think is his name,
Prince Beera,
and
yeah.
yeah, and he is the an interesting fact is he's the only driver until Alex Albon that is from Thailand. So it took 75 years for the Thais to make a comeback in Formula One. But you had a prince, you had a baron, Louis Chiron, familiar
Mm.
name, Chiron, right? So Bugatti actually named the Chiron after him. but he's actually he made a living as a professional dancer and a
Really?
chauffeur. I mean, it sounds a little crazy. There was a lot of people that like own businesses from wine to furniture and all that. So hey, there's an F1 race. I guess I'm a jazz musician. I'm gonna go enter. And it'd be like Lady Gaga saying, "Hey, I'm just gonna race next week. Why not?" But I'm not sure if Lady Gaga would do as well as I think it was Johnny Class is his name. He qualified last, but he came in 11th out of 20. So hey, maybe there's a future for jazz musicians turned F1 drivers if 1950 was any example. But quite a collection. And I think the other thing, if you look at these guys, they're not the physical specimens that you have now in Formula One. And they're Ascari, which is one of the great Italian drivers. Now he wasn't in this first race, but they called him Ciccio. Ciccio in Italian means chubby or the fat one. But even though they may not have been slim and trim, the strength I think that these guys had to have. If you look at these cars, these no power steering, right? These giant wheels. So from being able to withstand G forces, they didn't have such a challenge back then. But the strength you probably needed in your arms to just wrestle those things around, I think, regardless of how portly or whatever your physique was, I think you underneath you had to definitely have the strength to drive these cars.
Without a doubt, yeah. I mean, the cornering of these cars. I mean, this was a very high-speed track, Silverstone. Still is, of course, a lot more simplified back then in those days. But the strength that you would need to pilot these things, there was no aerodynamics, all front engines, treads on the tires. I mean, I've got it paused on here. There's actual tread on the tires. This was long, long before the days of slicks. You got the exhaust coming out the side of them. These were beasts, these cars back then. These were, a lot closer to an actual road car in a lot of senses than what Formula One is now to a modern day road car, if you know what I mean. These were very, very powerful beasts. We saw supercharged engines, I think, as well.
Yes, and when I look at me, you say sort of like a road car. I'd go even further. I think it's more like a go-kart. If
Yeah.
you ever look at someone sitting in a go-kart, there's no roll bar in a go-kart, right? And look at the heads of these drivers
Mm.
above where the top of the car is. And as a result, as in a go-kart, rather than being strapped in, the idea is to be thrown from the car. And some of those drivers were quoted as saying, "Hey, I'd rather be thrown from a car going 150 miles an hour than to burn inside of it," right? And that was really the balance back then. Was it was very, very dangerous. The chance of fuel leakage and all that was tremendous.
Hmm.
Just get me away from this thing. And so in that sense, it's completely different in that the modern F1 car is safe. It's a safety cell. I mean, that's exactly what they call it, right? You got the monocoque, it protects the driver. You got the halo. Everything's being done that stay in the car, everything's going to be fine. And all that they do to avoid fire and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's really like looking at 180-mile-an-hour go-karts that weigh, 1,000 pounds or even more, right? So it's definitely a scary kind of vehicle to drive, especially for the first time. I mean, those guys had to have some guts to get out there in those things.
Absolutely. I mean, they were maybe not as professional as what we see nowadays, but they were no doubt just as brave, if not braver, back in those days to compete in motorsport. But yeah, let's get to the actual race itself. Just amazing seeing this footage in color. I can't believe they've actually managed to do this. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it actually is really crisp too.
Mm.
There must be some restoration going on here. But
I
yeah,
mean,
it's really great. And
yeah,
and and I like the up close, the back. It gives you a real feel for the crowd. You can see everything that's going on, the
yeah,
barriers, all that
huge,
kind of thing.
huge crowds, and the barrier's just a bit of rope.
Yeah,
That's all there
or hay
is.
bales.
But I'm
I'm sure
sure.
those hay bales would easily stop that car. Oh, and there's the
Oh,
Queen.
we've got to talk about the royal box here.
The royal box, yes,
Oh,
indeed.
I mean, yeah, everybody else is just sat on the field, but there is the king and the queen and the future Queen Elizabeth II there, Princess Elizabeth at the time. And the royal box is just basically a bit of scaffolding, some wood, and a tarp on the top of it. And that's all there is. Imagine if, I mean, it's a bright sunny day, but imagine if it was raining.
Oh my God! Thank goodness they didn't go off the track there, or maybe those massive hay bales protected the queen. I wonder where her security detail was when all this was going on.
Oh, I don't think we really had much of a security detail back then for stuff like. I could be wrong, but I don't. There's not many people there, is there? There's a few people with suits and bowler hats, so maybe they're the security detail. But yeah,
Or maybe the queen in the royal box there got extra large hay bales, like the super duper one for the royal family only. You get these massive hay bales or something. But yeah, it's not. I don't think that would pass mustard these days. That's for sure.
king size hay bales, some may say. But yeah.
The biggest hay bales in the world come from the UK, and we're proud of it. We're going to show them off here at Silverstone.
Absolutely, you can't beat a bit of British hay, can you? It's the best. It's the best in the world. They don't make them like they used to. But yeah, we just had to highlight that. That's incredible. That I love that.
Well, the other thing too is, you could talk about the hay bales and joke about it, but I think that the fact that this was an airfield or other races in Formula One were just on streets and there'd be like a telephone pole somewhere. There were no runoff
Yeah.
or any of these kinds of things. And as a result, there were a lot of deaths in those early years. I think there was like 15 drivers died during the 1950s. And it was Jackie Stewart, I think in the 60s, that came around and said, hey, enough of this. And he started a bit of a rebellion back then. I think Spa and Nürburgring. I forget the exact name for Nürburgring, but I think they called it the Green Hell or something like that.
They did, and they still do.
Yeah, and we take all those things for granted now. And where back then, and you can't blame them. They didn't know. They really didn't know, and so they're bringing it all out. So. I think the other side of the coin there is, well, you look at a track like Coda in the United States, and then let's take Abu Dhabi, right? And that track. They all sort of starting to look the same. They're beautiful tracks with the painted lines and the runoffs, different combinations of turns, but they're sort of the same. And nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's what you have to do to put on a modern race with all the facilities, and especially the safety that you need, the hospitals, helicopter pads, media, paddock club. None of that existed early on. So I'm sure there's some people out there that would say, oh, in the old days, the tracks had such character. And now, it's commercial. Now it's commercial, but it's I guess a definite sign of the evolution from those early days to where it is now. Again, going back, it looks more like a go-kart track with hay bales than it does certainly the highest in motorsports competition.
For sure, but at the time, this was of course the highest point of motorsport competition. But yeah, it's incredible how much it's changed. The overall outline of Silverstone is mostly the same, but everything else has changed. Still a very high speed track, and while the cars were going round as well, these were obviously cutting edge. These would have seemed incredible, machines at the time. But look how slow they look compared to today, Ed. They look like they're wading through treacle, but these were the fastest cars in the world at the time.
Well, it's interesting when you look at an F1 race, and it's better now than it was a few years back, but you're always hoping for some passing and some action. And in a way, they're fast, but they don't really look that fast until you see something that's slower. And I was at the Indianapolis 500 on Carb Day, which is like a warm-up day for the race, and we were watching the practice. And then, so on the straightaway, they're approaching 240, 250 miles an hour on that straightaway as they're looking at the cars. After practice was over, the Oscar Mayer Wiener cars. Have you ever seen the Oscar Mayer Wiener car? It's like a hot dog,
Yes, I have seen
massive
that. Yeah.
hot dog on wheels. They had six Wiener cars racing at an astounding speed of 60 miles per hour. And I'll tell you what, it was like, where, and but you know what? People were entertained. They loved every minute of it. But it's you don't know how fast these cars are going unless you can see how they used to go. It'd be interesting to get that 1950s car on the track together and with a modern day car, just so people can realize the difference between the two.
They sort of, believe it or not, I'll have to look it up, see if I can still find it, but they kind of did that in the 80s. Fangio raced his original, I think it was his Mercedes from the 50s, against a bunch of other kind of F1 champions from the 60s and 70s. I'm sure he did it in the 80s. And yeah, it looked like obviously Fangio, even at 70 odd years old, he was absolutely gunning for it. Even though it was meant to be an exhibition race, he was just full on going flat out. But yeah, just seeing the speed comparisons between even a 70s and an 80s F1 car to a 50s one, it's like, my God, it's space age stuff. It really, really is. But yeah, I'll
Well,
go on.
well,
Sorry.
I was gonna say I want to give you maybe one of the biggest impressions, and I think probably one of the biggest differences. Very, very subtle point is when you look at these cars. The one thing I think, obviously, it's front engine and there's no roll bar and all that. But there's something more important that's different, I think, which is there are no stickers on the cars. Where's the Oracle stickers? Where's Petronas, Haas, whatever it is? It's like a red Ferrari, and there's plenty of room. Just think if we would have been there in 1950, George, we could have gotten sponsorship for like $10. Hey, I'll give you $10 if you're, or £10 to put my sticker on this car. And there were 120,000 people there, no stickers on the cars. I think on the start finish, there was like an advert for an oil company or something like that. But the commercialization level from the old days, 1950, to now is unbelievable.
Hmm.
Like just to get a sticker this big on a Formula One car is going to be many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars if you want it for the entire season. And if you want a big sticker on there, now you're into the hundreds of millions in investment. So that I think, well, first of all, that makes the sport, it can drive the sport, it brings in more revenue. It also changes the nature of it because now all these drivers are spokesmen for the business as well as drivers, and they have to do both very, very well.
Absolutely, yeah. Back then, of course, before the days of sponsorships, every driver, every team, I should say, raced in their national team colours. That's why the Italian cars are in red, the British ones are in green, and French are in blue, and uh, Germans are in white originally, I think, but then eventually went to silver, of course, for Mercedes. But yeah, let's keep motoring on through this.
Yeah.
So,
Um, I think the safety, we talk about safety on the track. I think you need to also think about a little bit about the safety of the drivers themselves.
mm,
Did you see the helmets they had? It
no
was like,
full helmets. Just
oh my
yeah,
God, it's like a thin layer of leather. And I think there was a massive improvement 2 or 3 years later. They added cork. They added a little layer of cork to the helmet. No seat belts. Again, we talked about it earlier. I'd rather be thrown from the car, right? So seat belts came in much later. And over time, all sorts of crazy things that people would try, like those initial wings, remember, with the little thin struts on them that would just like fall off in the middle of a turn or something like that. So
yeah.
I, I think over time, we didn't suddenly get to the safe cars we have today in one step. It was little by little, and the regulations, I think, have driven the improvement in safety to require helmets, to require seatbelts, and all that. So again, it's in some ways they had a lot of guts, those guys, getting out there on the track with a thin leather cap and and goggles on.
Ah, yeah, absolutely. It's all changed since those days.
Oh, the pit stops.
Yeah. Minutes rather than seconds in these days.
Yes. Well, the pit stop is actually a very interesting thing. And until I don't think it was the 90s, well, the pit stops are interesting and they used to allow refueling
Mm.
even in the 19th. So I think the actual time for a pit stop back in 1950 is roughly 30 seconds, a very leisurely refueling session. In when refueling was allowed in Formula One, I think that time went down to like 5, 6 seconds, maybe a little bit less than that. And
Mm.
now, of course, I think the record is 1.8 seconds by
Yeah.
McLaren. Then I think records two through some big number, 7 or 8, is all Red Bull. So McLaren has even jumped him on that. I'm sure there's a lot of people at Red Bull practicing their pit stops. Uh, but I did talk to a tire changer once, and I asked him, if you just take one tire and change it as fast as you can, what is the record? And he says a good tire changer, and they're probably the same on all the teams, can do it in 1.6 seconds. So the extra 2/10 is the coordination between the four wheels, which I find that really, really interesting. So to get from a 2.2 down to 1.8, it's not so much being faster at changing, but doing it at the same time and doing it as soon as you can. Which,
That's
of course, in
wild.
1950, they didn't worry about it.
I did not know. Absolutely.
If you look at the shape of these cars, they're like big boxes. And you almost couldn't come up with a worse aerodynamic shape. Big flat thing in the front. There's a little bit of curve to it or whatever, but um, no one really thought about aero then. And with top speeds of 180 miles per hour, if somebody would have back then thought about that, these cars would have gone a lot faster. So they were just focusing on making the engine big and powerful. That's what really mattered. Still, that's the case. However, aero is, especially at speeds like that, most of the horsepower loss is the ability to slip through the air. And I think at that time, no one was really thinking about that because the development of the engine was probably the most important thing. I mean, it's Ferrari. I think Enzo Ferrari, he said, I'll give you a free car if you buy the engine because motorsports is built on the culture of the engine more so than the car. Until more recently, I think things have changed. And in fact, very, very recently, it's the publicity and all that matters even more than the car and the engine. But back then, it was all engine, aero. In fact, aero, like what? What's aero? I'm not even thinking about that.
Yeah, Ferrari also said that aerodynamics is for people who can't design engines. Back in those days. And he was rather made to eat his words not too long after that, of course, as the garagistas took over. That was many years after this. But yeah, incredible stuff, really, this footage. And yeah, Giuseppe Farina, who, of course, went on to win the World Championship that year, winning the first ever Formula One Grand Prix around Silverstone back in 1950. Over 40 years of age as well. You know, we spoke about it before about how F1's changed over the decades and the age profile of drivers, of course, going way up back then compared to what it is now. But yeah, do implore you guys have a look online and try and find this. Formula One did post the same video as well if you want to get the full experience of it. But yeah, just kind of our thoughts on it and how much things have changed. But yeah, Formula One in those days so different to what it is now, as you'd expect for anything 75 years ago. But with something where technology is integral like Formula One, it's just unrecognizable almost, isn't it, Ed? Really?
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned the thing about age. There were three drivers in that first race that were in their 50s, three in their 50s. The average age, I'm looking here at this, is the average age was 39. Now,
39.
but which compared to 27 now. So you got Antonelli at 18, right? You got Antonelli at 18, and you've got the old man, Alonso, at 43. And I think that it's a little fun fact just to throw in there. The winner of that first race, Giuseppe Farina, was 43 as well. So
Oh.
Alonso and Farina this year or the same age, the winner of the first race. So maybe, who knows? Maybe Alonso will win a race this year in the honor of the first as a 75th anniversary gift. Maybe he'll somehow end up on that podium. Who knows? But it's amazing. The oldest driver now is the age of the winner back then. And the youngest driver now is less than half less than half the age of the winner back in 1950. So it's actually come way down, and that's probably shows you the importance of youthfulness and obviously the younger you are, the better it's easier to get in that physical condition you need to withstand those 5-6 Gs that those drivers put up with whenever they're on that track.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Formula One. It's weird how it's gone back that way with now with the age a little bit for people like Alonso, but Alonso is very much the exception rather than the rule. Then again, Hamilton will probably keep competing in Formula One till he's that age, if not older. But yeah, fascinating stuff there. Hope you guys enjoyed our kind of look back at the 1950 British Grand Prix. Yeah, let us know what you want to hear us talk about next. We're always up for taking on ideas at the end of the day. And yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What's your biggest kind of change? What do you think is the most important change in Formula One since 1950? The safety, the cars, the drivers. What surprised you the most? Was it the Royal Box? Be honest with us. We'll see you soon for some more content like this on the channel, guys. Have a great day wherever you are in the world today, and yeah, see you soon.
Yeah, and maybe a final word is I'd love to hear what someone would pay to actually be in that royal box. I mean, that might even be better than the Paddock Club, don't you think? I was in the royal box. Who cares about the Paddock Club?
It's absolutely a status symbol, so I can't disagree with that.
All right, George. Thanks a lot. It's great talking to you and to all our listeners.
Absolutely, yeah. Great talking to you as always. Cheers.